Welcome to our Sapient agents and investors from across the country. Today is October 7th, 2021, and this is Mastermind podcast number 348. Hope you all are doing well today. We're here for you. We very much encourage participation. We are always looking for a winner of the week. That is probate specific. And then we're also looking for an idea of the week. And if we don't get any others, I don't qualify for the prize, but I might share one with you before the call's over. So hit *6 and then hit 1 if you would like to actively participate. Bruce, anything you would like to mention before we get started?
No, I do not have anything.
All right. I know you just started another foundations class.
Yep, we're right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it. All right. If y'all haven't taken foundations, you don't know what you're missing. It is, honestly, Bruce, don't listen, but it's probably the highest value, most relevant to today's real estate coaching I've ever heard. It's a great program. You need to be in there. You need to take advantage of it. It is free for our subscribers and ridiculously inexpensive if you want to take it, before you get our leads. Mr. Tim, anything you want to share?
No, not really. I always kind of, we spend a lot of time internally talking about the marketplace and how things are going and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that I would point out to the people on this call is that we had kind of experienced a lull at the end of the summer in terms of business and interest. And, our business has some degree of cyclical behavior as well. And what we're seeing now is that has begun to change. People are rocking and rolling and, more anxious to grow their businesses. And so there's more people that we can help to do that. And I suspect that as, between now and Christmas, obviously we're looking at diminished inventory that's out there. That hasn't changed. Properties selling for, more than any of us would expect them to sell for is also something that is potentially beginning to flatten out a little bit. Certainly it is still happening because of diminished availability, but I think what's most important to realize is that we're in the one niche in the marketplace that is an evergreen niche, and inventory is there. And I suspect that Jim's bright idea may address that. And if not, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the call. And
all
Chuck,
right,
you had something. Chuck, you had something you wanted to add. What were you going to say, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind all the lead subscribers that one of the components of your subscription is a free monthly 15 to 20 minute strategy call. And if you're maybe nervous or don't want to ask your questions directly here in a group format, definitely go to the training tab and the professional real estate coaching and schedule your strategy coaching call. We'll sit down one-on-one and get you unstuck from whatever it is that you're facing.
All right, perfect. Well, we have one person in the queue, an old friend of ours who frequents Flyer, and we do have room for more. Hit *6 and hit 1. And Tim, I think I'm going to go ahead and mention my idea now because it really piggybacks very much on what you said. I mentioned it to my partners, and I call it my stream of unconsciousness.
That's what we always call anything you say, actually, Jim.
Well, thank you. We're all in agreement. I got my real estate license when I was 21. I spent my first 8 years working with buyers. The only listings I ever took were friends who could convince their parents, to list with me. And then I got into coaching. I started treating it more like a business, and I kind of made the switch to listings. Over the next 30 years, I rarely put a buyer in my car. So I know that the market today has significantly changed, and I suspect that even a lot of the listing agents now, the inventory's dried up so much that they may be working with buyers again. They may be splitting their time between buyers and sellers. And first of all, it absolutely amazes me that everybody isn't working probate, because if I were doing this today, I don't think I'd spend too much time with FSBOs and expireds. I think I'd look for off-market sources like probate, like absentee owners. So having said that, it's like Tim said, it is an evergreen source. You really should be putting more of your time and effort into getting probate listings. It also occurred to me that I wonder if anybody on this call or anybody listening to this podcast has ever tried to use the probate leads to attract buyers and make them loyal to them. And what I mean by that is I keep seeing on Facebook, I keep seeing posts about, I showed a buyer 20 houses. His first offer didn't get accepted. Now he wants to go work with somebody else. It's really hard to build buyer loyalty in this market because it is so competitive and it is so hard to find deals. And I just wonder if you kind of put the word out there to the buyers that I get 50 to 100 potential leads every month of people that probably are not otherwise ready to put their house on the market for a few months. So what I'm willing to do for you, Mr. Buyer, if you would, if you be loyal to me, the day the leads come in, come by my office. Now you'd probably have to get Probate Plus to make this work, but come by my office and you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 buyers come by your office. Let's look through the inventory and let's see if any of those properties seem to meet your criteria. And if so, I'll get on the phone, I'll call the seller. And now I'm not calling the seller, begging them to list with me. I'm calling, asking them if they would accept an offer from somebody sitting in my office or somebody that I'm already working with. And I mean, there's just so many ways you could do this. You could do it that way. You could get, 3, 4, 5 buyers that have some interest, and you could even send off a contract unsolicited contingent on inspections. But it just would be such a different approach. I wonder, so I just want to throw it out there to you. Is anybody using the probate leads to attract buyers and make them more loyal to you? If so, how's it going? And if not, I'd love to see somebody try it. I don't actively sell anymore, so I can't try it. But I'd love to see somebody try it and get back and let me know what kind of results you get. So I think I win the idea of the week. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jim, let me ask you a question. So is what you're saying that you think the approach would be to simply highlight the fact that these are, in a lot of cases, off-market property and they're not competitive? In other words, if they make an offer, you're going to get it in before others are offering. Is that your point?
100%, because the buyers are frustrated if they've had 2, 3, 4 offers not go through. And here this agent says, hey, I can give you, 50 or 100 potential properties a month that pretty much you've got zero competition. You're going to have first shot at it. What kind of loyalty would that build with the buyers to you? But yeah, 100%. You could build buyer loyalty, attract buyers to stick with you by giving them an off-market source where there's virtually no competition. Now, I'm not saying there isn't competition with realtors trying to get the listings, but I very much doubt that anybody else is calling saying, hey, I've got a buyer sitting here in my office that very interested in buying your home. And I don't think anybody else is just sending them contracts unsolicited. So, very smart person told me at the beginning of my career, try to figure out what everybody else is doing and do the opposite. And this is just such an opposite approach. I'm not saying don't go after the listings, but I'm saying use it to build buyer loyalty. And in the process, you're probably going to double end more properties, and you're probably going to get some listings because you're taking an approach that nobody else has taken.
Okay, that's great.
That's interesting, Jim. You kind of bringing that up. It really goes to a strategy that I've used in the past and still occasionally use, and will periodically teach people today on kind of the private coaching calls, is to use bait, the bait of having a buyer to catch the bait of having a seller. And you can go back and forth with bait all day long, because what buyer doesn't want to go after the bait of off-market listings that they can't find on the MLS? if you tell a buyer, I have off-market listings, you can't find them on the MLS, or I have off-market properties you can't find on the MLS, work with me for that list or for those properties, they're gonna flood to you. On the flip side, what seller doesn't want the bait of knowing that you have buyers that nobody else is working with? So now
Sure.
you're incentivizing both sides of the aisle, so to speak. You're incentivizing both sides to work with you because you have the buyers that the seller wants, and those buyers are not in the traditional market, and you have the sellers that the buyers want that aren't on the market. So that becomes kind of that USP that you're presenting to both sides, and it really generates. I'll never forget. I worked with an NBA basketball player once, only really super famous person that I've ever worked with, and he wanted in Raleigh, North Carolina, a house with a basement and a swimming pool. And I don't know how many of you know Raleigh, but Raleigh doesn't have basements. It's the soil's a little bit sandy. There's very few basements. So I went and I pulled all the property owners that had a basement and a swimming pool in the market, and I mailed and called all of them and said, I have a buyer that wants a house with a basement and a pool, and there's very few houses like yours on the market. Would you consider selling if the price was right? Or would you consider an offer if we brought you one? And ended up having multiple people that said yes. A lot of them were not in this person's price range. So then I took that list and I went out and I ran ads for buyers that wanted a house with a basement and a pool. And I had people just flood me because they couldn't find a basement or a pool anywhere. So you use the bait of inventory to catch the bait of a buyer, and then you can just play those off of each other and generate yourself a really healthy amount of leads and business.
Awesome.
Hopefully that was clear as mud.
No, it was. It was a great example. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I would love for one of you to take that idea and run with it. I'd love to hear if any of you are trying anything like that. And if you do have success, if you have any results, come back and report to us like next week and let us know how it goes. All right. We have 2 people in the queue. We do have plenty of room for more, guys. Hit *6 and hit 1. And let's go to our first caller. First up is Mr. Rick Wilson. How you doing, Rick?
Hey, how y'all doing? Haven't spoken with you in a couple of weeks, but I haven't forgotten about you. I was just
You're usually a regular.
No, still here. Just busy doing other stuff. But in any case, no, I keep running into the I have a realtor objection, and I thought I hit it pretty well handled, but I don't know. I don't think maybe my response is that good, and I don't know if we've ever discussed that one. Probably have. I just wasn't there when you did it. But what I was going to do is just tell you what I say, and then you guys can critique it or maybe offer a better solution.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, Bruce, you're going to be the prospect. You're going to tell me, I have a realtor.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right. Oh, Rick, I actually already have a realtor.
Well, that's
Appreciate
great. I admire your loyalty. Yeah, I admire your loyalty. I was curious. Let me ask, when in the past you decided to buy or do something and asked a friend like you have here, should they need help, should you need help, that they would give you a call? You waited only to find out you couldn't or didn't get what you wanted. I think everyone's experienced that. Well, here's a time like that. And with that in mind, getting a second opinion wouldn't hurt, would it? I'll take just a quick moment to look at your property and give you a broker's price opinion, no charge. Is there any reason we could meet this afternoon at 5:15?
No, I think we're pretty good.
Okay, there you go.
Well, let me ask you, what's happening when you use that?
Well, pretty much the problem comes is they don't feel that second opinion is of importance. Probably either at this point, maybe ever. I don't know.
Did they
So
say that, or are you speculating?
That's probably not. No, I'm just assuming they didn't say that because I couldn't get that far with them on it.
What do they say?
No, thank you.
Click. No, thank you. All right.
No, thank
Just
you.
what I said. No, thanks. Right.
I might could go on and
is
maybe I could ask another follow-up question, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think your lead into the question is too long.
Okay.
You're kind of losing me. I got
Okay.
what you were saying. I understand the reason, but the more words you use when you provide your reasoning, the longer that takes, the less confident you sound and more uncertainty that you spread in their
Gotcha.
mind. So, you know, I'm gonna reframe that objection. Hey, we already have a realtor that we're going to work with. Oh, hey, great. It sounds like you probably have this is probably a good friend. So reframe it. Try to get some information by making a statement and see if they affirm or correct your assumption that you've made about them. Hey, great. I'm glad to hear you have a good realtor. I'm assuming that's a friend.
Well, actually, somebody I go to church with.
Someone you go to church with?
Yes.
I'm guessing they probably handle probate, right?
I don't know.
Don't know? Okay. Hey, they might be the best person in the world. Rick, could I shoot you another opinion? Just let you know kind of what I do specifically with regard to probate. And if they handle the same things, then no problem. If they don't, maybe we could meet. Would that be worth it?
I guess so.
Okay. All right. Short, to the point. I want you peppering questions in there where you went for about a minute, maybe a little bit longer than a minute before you asked the question. I want you peppering questions into the rest of that conversation so that you're not talking too long before asking a question, because I think that's where you're losing people, is in your spiel before the question.
Okay. Getting back to that real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, I was just going to add to that. If I may, Rick, I had a very similar comment. The technique you were using there, that's actually an NLP technique. You know, has this ever happened to you before? You remember how that turned out? Well, this time is just like that time. I felt like that's what you were trying to do. That's what you're trying to do, but I like Bruce. I was kind of confused. You sort of lost me.
Okay.
I didn't really exactly follow the story, and I think it was way too long. It just needs to be a much simpler example, you know, and I don't even know if this is a good one, but hey, you know somebody in church, oh, that's great. And let me just ask you, you know, I know myself, like I've gone with friends or family or people at church and, for a plumber or a roofer or something. And, when I was all done, I kind of wonder if maybe I shouldn't have gotten another estimate or another opinion. It didn't always turn out great. Has that ever happened to you? Well, this time is just like that time. Just make it a simpler, more relatable story, and ask questions as you go instead of kind of. It was just too long. I just wanted to agree. And then I agree. Okay, perfect. You had a follow-up question?
Yeah, I was just saying is that so from what Bruce said, if what they're going to likely say if I ask them, do they, being the friend from church, handle probate? The chances are pretty good they're going to say, I don't know. Well, fine. Then would you mind, or would it be okay, or would it be all right if I sent you a list of our services and then get back to you and you can compare it to what they're offering? And if I don't know how to. I'm getting into too many words again. That's what I'm getting.
Well, they're feeling a little bit threatened and challenged with what you're doing, and so I need you to remove that threat and that challenge, because you want to find out if they're open-minded. And so, hey, look, what I do probably, if you have a good friend that's probably going to list the house, what I do probably isn't really going to be much of a fit for you. Your friend, I assume, handles probate normally, right? Now you're framing things in a way that you're not challenging them and you're not confronting them, but you're making them think about things that they probably haven't thought about before. So, no, I don't know if my friend does handle probate. Okay, hey, look, that's not a problem. again, this might not be the right fit for you, but I specifically specialize in handling properties and estates that are going through probate. Are you open-minded to taking a look at a second opinion, or are you pretty locked in, committed to your friend? And so this is probably not the absolute best sales technique in the world, but for me, prospecting is all about identifying who I'm not going to work with and giving them some reasons to open their mind up, because they're closed-minded to you in the beginning. You need to give them some reasons to open their mind up, and if they're not going to open their mind, you just need to know about it. So give them an opportunity, and if they remain closed off, move on to the next person.
Okay. So the big brief,
make some assumptions about their friend.
Yeah. So just to be brief, you know, respond great. It sounds like they're a good friend. Do they? May I ask? Do you know if they handle probate? And they're going to come back.
I'd say,
sorry, I don't know.
I assume they handle probate. Not do you know if? A little bit challenging. A little bit of a challenge to them if you say, do you know if? So I assume that they've handled probate before, right?
Right.
You give them a little bit of an opportunity to save face. Do you know if they have handled probate? Now you're kind of challenging them, and in their mind they're saying, "Whoa, you're challenging me." Well, yeah, they handle probate, but I assume they handle probate, right? And
I might
now they might have a chance to say, "I don't know." Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, give them a chance to say, "I don't know," without challenging.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rick, I might even say I assume they specialize in probate, or I assume that they're very experienced in probate, right? Yeah, just
I see what you're saying.
That you're insinuating how different you are.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, well then the question that really is the clincher on this would be the question: are you open to a second opinion? And if they're not, then like Bruce just said, they've established that they're not going to work with me or maybe anyone else. But they're definitely not working with me right now.
Hey,
so
Rick, have you ever tried, asking them if you're, the person that you're working with, do they already have a buyer lined up for the property? And, that's an interesting question to ask and say nothing after that. And the point being there that alludes to the fact that you got buyers in your pocket, and, it'll also tell you at that point and the next follow on is, has the property been listed, or all the other things you'd normally go do. But you're leading with, I got money for you. And you have the ability, you're reducing it to, the real estate transaction, but you're kind of already to the point where they're trying to blow you off because of that. And it's potentially worth asking if, that's happened at this point. And if not, then you've got the opportunity to say, well, the reason that I'm calling you, part of it is because I have a buyer that's looking for property in that market, and in particular, potentially, this house. And I wanted the opportunity to present it to you. And of course, if we did it that way, from a transaction standpoint, maybe able to do that in a way that might save you some money. So, that's why I'm calling you.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, Rick, we don't ever give you one answer. We try to give you multiple answers. You could.
I like the one answer.
Well, there is no one size fits all with this.
I know.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
The other thing which I'm going to tell you, which I think you already realize, is a significant percentage of the time they may not even be telling you the truth. They may not know anybody. It might just be. Of course. It might just be a defense mechanism to get rid of you. So, you could also use Bruce's technique. Oh, good for you. Hey, if it doesn't work out with the guy at church, do you mind taking my name and number? And then, get them engaged. And then, hey, just before you go, I'm just curious, where is the property located? And then you could go into Bruce, to Tim's tech. No kidding. I think I may have a potential buyer for that. How much are you asking for it? What kind of, make it once they acknowledge that there's a property, you could make it a real estate specific conversation, and they may not even remember that they told you that the guy at church was going to do it by the time you're done, because it may not even be true.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that was very helpful. I've made copious notes here, and I'll change that out immediately.
Try all of the above and see what works best for you, my friend. We appreciate it.
That's right. I'll try it all. Try it all. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Well, guys, we have another in the queue. We do have room for more. Hit *6 and hit 1. And in the meantime, next up is phone number ending in 9152. You're up next.
Hi there. My name is Pete. How are you guys?
Hey, Pete. Doing great. How about you?
Good. Excellent. Well, let me start out saying I'm really, really new in the business and might be in over my head. You guys know far more than I do, but I'm new in the business, but I'm very excited to jumpstart my career, and I don't want to be just the same old agent, an average, realtor. I'm looking for a specialized niche, and a friend of mine gave me some advice to look in this direction, and it seems like something I'd really, really want to sink my teeth into. Anyway, so just to start off, what's the best advice you guys can give me for a newbie like me?
Bruce?
So how new are you?
7 months old.
Okay. All right. Any business yet? That's a loaded question.
I currently, well, obviously in the beginning, I've just attracted some buyers, but I do have 2 listings that are going to go live in the next 2 weeks. But it's just conventional stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with probate. But I work with a great broker, though. I've been assisting her for a long time, and she's busy as can be. But anyways, I just want to jump in, and I want to be successful as I can possibly be. So.
Okay. Do you want probate advice or real estate advice, or a combination of both?
More probate, but a little bit of both is fine.
All right. So ultimately, it comes down to the phone. Number one, I mean that's sort of the no-brainer that most coaches spend all their time telling you is pick the phone up and call. That's a no-brainer.
That was actually going to be my
you
next
can send me $1,000 for giving you that advice, and I'll be happy to take it. But you'll be sad to spend it. So just pick the phone up and prospect. Work on your dialogue technique. That's going to be crucial. I would study, even if it's just at a basic level, I'd study some NLP to work on your influential skills. The majority of agents load up on conversations that all end like, oh, by the way, if you know anyone that needs to buy or sell a house, never too busy for your referrals. Terrible technique. Start to work on influence skills that cause you to dig at information out of people without them necessarily knowing what they're giving you. So study some NLP. If you're steadily calling, and that's both probate and your sphere of influence. So if you're steadily calling, the other thing that I'm going to highly advise is work on your credibility. And the best way to work on credibility is to give information away. And I know you're new. I know you don't have a lot of information, but if you were to look at just go on Google and type in how to sell your house for top dollar, or how to buy a house with conveniently, and just look that stuff up, and then begin to curate other people's information and share it socially, share it on a blog, share it on websites. Begin to teach people what you're learning as you're learning it. You'll rapidly shortcut, number one, the learning process for yourself, but number two, the credibility process, because most people don't find agents credible because all they ever hear is, I sell houses, I sell houses, I sell houses.
Yeah.
And that's no way to present yourself in a credible way.
Right.
The best way is to teach people something. And there's no better time to teach it than when you're learning it.
I agree 100%. I have a lot of background in homes per se, as I was a contractor for many years, and I did do some flips back in the 80s with another broker. I was just a contractor, so I have a lot of knowledge about structure of the home and how to get your home ready and that kind of. Those are sort of the things that I try to teach, and in my speech and approach. And I don't know if that sounds good to you or not, but I think it's
Great.
a good knowledge to have, rather than just, because I can almost go around just as well as an inspector and see what needs to be, done. So, anyways,
no, Pete, I was gonna add, and I think you've already passed this point, but I got my real estate license the day I was old enough to qualify for it, and I used to tell people, hey, I'm brand new. You're going to be my first sale. I had 2 or 3 people, buyers I was working with, for competing to be my first sale. You said something there that is really important. You said you have a great broker. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make, and it's already obvious that you're not doing this, but maybe somebody on the call is, that new people want to know everything before they do anything. And fortunately, this isn't brain surgery. Nobody's going to die if you screw up. And if you've got a good broker, you're not going to get sued either, because he's going to be keeping a good eye on you. But don't be afraid to just go out there. Don't be afraid to go out and massively fail, because every failure gets you closer. And the fact that you got 2 listings already is awesome. And you already have a world of knowledge I didn't have, with your contracting and flipping background. So you're probably, you're so far ahead of the game compared to where I was and where a lot of newbies are. You probably have way more to offer than you're even aware of.
Well, that makes me feel good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Sometimes, that, as far as the phone calls go, I am not shy. I hit it every day. And one of my questions was, is it best? I guess it's probably best to make phone calls, but between phone calls and sending letters, should I do both? Kind of target some areas, or is it best just to pick up the phone and make contact?
Is this for
as far as like letters?
Probate,
Go ahead.
For probate, I think you should do both. No, and I think I'm stepping on your questions as well, so please forgive me. For probate, I think you do both. Very, very, very dependent on budget. So if you're going to do mail, you need to do it strategically, and that strategy could be twofold. The more affordable strategy probably doesn't produce as much, but it's a good lead in to your phone call, and that strategy would be to send 1, maybe 2 higher value pieces, so a little bit more expensive, a brochure, a magazine, something like that, leading into your phone campaign. The more comprehensive type that's going to, over time, give you a little bit better result is to run a 6 to 9 month mailing campaign where you might be hitting them 8, 10, 11 times. I wouldn't get caught in the middle. I really wouldn't get caught in a 2, 3, 4 mail touch campaign, because most people aren't ready to make a life altering or estate altering decision that early in the process. So you want to be in front of them with your mail and your phone calls when they're most likely to be ready. And for the average person, depending on your market, the average family, that's going to be around that 5 or 6 month mark.
Yeah,
so if you're going to do
very
mail,
good point.
Stretch it out.
Okay.
And Tim, you had a comment.
Unfortunately, I've been there and been in that situation, and I totally understand the emotions of what goes on in that whole time period, and the healing process that takes place. And, so every family seems to have a little bit different dynamic. I've ran into some people that could that's just not, okay, it's life, it's death. Let's move, let's get all the stuff out. Let's get this moving now. And some people hang on to it. It's a touchy, situation. So is it good to understand, people like, what people are going through, and to give them, to reflect that, it's like, hey, I'm here for you. Or is it best just to be black and white?
It's best to understand their process and their pain points, and to know the whole experience that they're having. It's best to know that they're probably cutting the grass every week. It's best to know that they're cleaning the gutters, that they're probably having to divide up property and make trips to the dump. It's best to know all those things and provide a solution that matches the experience instead of just selling a house.
Yeah, that's great. I've definitely gone through the whole thing. So,
sure. Kim, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was going to point something else out. This has nothing to do with probate. It's more to the, we always try to give you more than you ask for. So something occurred to me, and it's not something that had come up on this call before to the depth that I'm about to take it. So we always talk about building a team, and it's very important to do that. And internally and externally, we refer to it as the wheel of probate, and that, you're kind of the axle of all of that, and you're gathering together estate sale people, clean out people, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Here's what's important about something that you said, and I will urge you to do this and get back to us. You said that you have a background as a contractor, and that you feel comfortable in that arena. You discussed, structural stuff. So two things need to happen for you because you're getting started. Go build that team and start with the contractors. And I would go knock on the door of as many contractors as you have time to do as you travel around in your local marketplace and as you see stuff going up in different areas. And think about if they're working like most people are, somebody's going to call them and they're going to say, hey, I got to update my house. I've got this to get done and all that. Give me a price estimate. And they do, and they price themselves out of the market, and they try to get their brother-in-law to do it for next to nothing and all that. And that's pretty normal in that industry. However, one of the things that also could happen in that arena is that if they, as soon as they get something like that from one of those people, that's a great time, an incredibly opportune time for you to hop in with a buyer and, say, hey, I understand, you're getting ready to take a look at, maybe spending some money on updates. You don't have to say this because you're giving your contact away, but if you were considering for any reason updating your property and looking at the expense entailed in doing that, you could potentially sell it as is and do really well on it right now. Are you interested in talking with me? And there are lots of different ways to put that, but make these contractors into people who are going to funnel leads to you, and make a deal with them that you're going to give them the piece of the action back as soon as that turns into revenue. And you've got a great way to do that because you're coming at them with a common background that a lot of realtors don't have. They're coming into this from other jobs and without the knowledge you have. So use what you already have and parlay that.
Oh, that's great. That's excellent advice. I don't know if it's, when I have the time and it's in the budget, I offer do some of the work myself, to make them feel comfortable as well. But I don't know if that's a good way to handle things. Some people appreciate it. I think some other people say, well, what hat are you wearing? Are you wearing the carpenter hat or you're my realtor? But
I think it becomes how you develop that relationship. If you've made a friend out of them, if they trust you, then you're dealing with them fairly. I think the only challenge there is that they would potentially look at what you're doing in a somewhat suspect way because it's like, well, does he really want to get money out of me for fixing my house up, or does he want to sell it? And which job is it that he's best at? So you probably need to get one of them settled first before you offer
Right.
the other. In other words, if you're going to fix it up, offer to fix it up and then do it. But don't try to shoot both guns at once. I think that's probably a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let me just finish one other thing I was going to say. While I'm directing this at you, I'm really directing that at everyone on this call. The idea of, we've talked before about, references going back and forth, and we've not gotten specific as to at about what point that works. And the truth of it is, it really is at that point of an estimate being given for an expensive repair. And the best example I can give you of why that's absolutely the right time to do it, the number one source of new car sales in an automobile dealership is at the service island. When they get an expensive service that's coming in and somebody needs to get an air conditioning fix or they need a new transmission or whatever, the dealer can do that at significantly less money. So they instantly pop that as a sales lead to the front of the house. And the same thing you need to apply, all of us need to apply that same analogy to our business and go out and recruit the very people that are putting out these expensive estimates who, if they put it out and they don't get the deal, they get nothing. If they put it out and give you a referral and you're able to list the house, they're going to get something out of it. And they still might do it.
Yep. Oh, that's great advice.
And I got one more for you. We're jumping all over the place, but to backtrack a little bit to something you asked about, what's the better approach, empathetic or logical,
Right. Okay.
But I've shared this on the call several times, but I'll share it again. When I had this idea like 8 years ago, I used to call and say, I'm sorry for your loss. And I felt like I was being sincere. I finally had a guy say, don't be, dying was the best thing that SOB ever did. And I kind of laughed and said, well, I laughed and I said, well, in that case, congratulations. The guy said, you've got a sense of humor. But that right there made me realize that I wasn't being sincere. I didn't know him. I wasn't really sorry for the loss. So I kind of switched to, I'm sure this is probably a very difficult time for your family. I started the conversation off with that. That's more acknowledging their situation and showing empathy without showing false sympathy. And, an extension of that could be, in talking to personal representatives, across the country, I often find the most difficult part of it is blank, is the stuff in the house. Is that an issue for you? Now you start talking about pain points that they're already experiencing. You've kind of got them. So you're being empathetic, but you're not being, phony, and you're being businesslike because you're helping them with something they need help with. So it's not either or. You can do both. I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
No.
Make sense?
But the wording, just switching it up to it's a difficult time for your family as opposed to what you said prior to that. It's all the difference in the world. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Anything else we can help you with?
Can I just say something real quick in regards to the last caller?
Sure.
When he was talking about second opinions, as far as him bringing a second opinion to the table. I don't know if he's still on the line, but it just made me think that because this real estate and all that they're going through in this situation is so important. And to me, it also, like when you go to the doctor for a health reason, it's so important that you need to go get a second opinion. Maybe put it on the lines of that. It's like, the importance of this real estate decision, could be as important as your health. You would go get a second opinion from your doctor. Maybe a second opinion as far as this real estate decision goes might help. Does that make sense?
Yep. You like that, Bruce?
I still like the concept. I like the idea of a question, and then so basically what you're doing there is valuable. The way Rick put it, the caller before you, was very valuable, but they haven't given you permission to disagree. So I want to go through a gate there. I want to ask for permission first. So hey, that makes total sense. It sounds like this. Okay, so we're gonna label it. It sounds like this. hey, do you mind if I share one other thought with you? And then once they've said yes, now you can say it. The issue that we have when we just objection handle is if they haven't given permission, we piss people off or we lose them, or they just tune us out. But if you ask for permission, hey, do you mind if I share one thought with you that some people haven't thought about? And then they say yes. Now you have their buy-in to what you're going to say. And it might work, it might not, but at least it'll be received a little bit better.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you guys so much for all of your help. I appreciate it tenfold. And I'll continue to listen on. And I promise I'll give you guys a call when I close my 100th probate deal.
Well, make sure you jump on Probate Foundation next time and join us on a free coaching call as well. So jump into your system and connect with us.
I sure will. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Okay.
You too. Thanks for the great input. We have one more in the queue. We do have room for more. If you'd like to jump in, this will be the last call for today. Hit *6 and hit 1. Last call for jumping in. And next up is phone number ending in 9942. You're up next.
Yeah, hi. Tom Roth calling from Keller Williams in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir.
I had an interesting phone call this morning. I send letters out. I haven't really been making phone calls, but I send letters out, and it seemed to me like I had a pretty good letter explaining what it is that I do with my service. I call it Lehigh Valley Probate Services. And I had a lady call me this morning, very distraught, accusing me of being a vulture. How dare I be sending stuff like this out to people who are bereaved and, you're just looking for business. You're a vulture. And it was a very unexpected and kind of unsettling conversation. I did say to her, well, may I just say something in response here? And she let me do that. And I said, well, what I do is I do send letters out, and it's not just about the real estate. Certainly, if you've inherited real estate, you might have other issues, like you might need a contractor, you might need an attorney, you might need somebody to do lawn service. I can help with that as well. I'm not just looking for business. I'm looking to help people who recently had perhaps a catastrophe in their life and might need some help. And she just hung up, just click. That was it. No other chance to say anything else. And I was wondering if you had any kind of, help for me on something like that. Because I don't want to be somebody who's pestering people. That's not what I'm in real estate or in the probate business for. So,
Bruce, before you comment, one thing you did was a perfect example of what we just talked about. You asked permission. You didn't jump in with your rebuttal or your counter argument. You said, "Do you mind if I?" So that's great. And she said, "Okay." So at least you got her to listen a little bit longer.
Yeah, I was actually trying to get her into a conversation. That was because I've been on these before, and what you say to me is that's how I don't do scripts. I do rapport, and so like I'm following with what you were saying earlier with some of these other people, but my letter is a rather simple letter, I think. If you want, I can read part of it to you. I don't want to read the whole thing. It's like a whole page, but
give us the gist. Give us the main points.
Okay, it says, please accept my sincere condolences for the passing of the name of the deceased. I wish you and your family peace during this difficult time. You may not know who I am or why I'm contacting you. My records tell me you recently inherited a home. You probably have questions about what to do next and how to handle everything. That's why I want to. This is when I send a book out. This one was a book letter because I also send out a book. This is why I have a copy of my book I recently published, Navigating Your Inherited Home Sale. I hope you find it helpful and fulfilling. That's the one letter that I have. And then it goes on to tell them about stuff like, if you need help finding contractors, if you need help selling the home, if you'd like to know what your home is worth, blah, blah, blah. That's one of them. And the other one,
while you're looking at the other one, I think that letter is pigeonholing you into only a real estate role. It's solid content, but it's putting you into a real estate role in their mind, and what they hear, especially if they're emotional, and it's not all of them are going to be emotional. What they hear is, "Sorry, your husband died. Do you want to sell the house and pay me a commission?" That's what she heard.
Okay.
Because it was very real estate focused. So I want to make it more holistically focused. Instead of because you've recently inherited a home, because you're going through probate. Okay. And I have no idea
because you're going through
what your circumstances are.
All right. Let me just grab one of these letters and scratch it out. Because the other one says somewhat the same thing. I'm trying to pull it up here on Word while I'm talking to you. Go ahead. So your comment was to
make it holistic about the whole probate experience, not just the real estate experience. Later on, you can tackle real estate later in your campaign.
My records tell me records tell me that you're going through probate. Is that right?
I'd probably not say my records. I'd reference it looks like you and your family may be going through probate. So I wouldn't say my records. It's just clinical. It's kind of clinical, and we want to avoid their negative emotion, their vitriolic emotion, but we still want a little bit of humanization and emotion in there. And my record show is just a little too clinical.
And Tom, you're sending this to the personal representative. You have the data that that's the person that you're talking to. So the thing to keep in mind is they may or may not even be in the family that's dealing with this. It could be, a friend. It could be an appointed person that the decedent could be their lifelong best friend. You're making an assumption to start with that, they're in the family, and they may well not be. And you may want to just start with, I understand that you're the personal representative for the estate of, Joe Smith. And that's a place to start. And offering condolences, back to what Jim said earlier, you don't know them. And while it's nice to say that, and I don't mean this in a facetious way, but you're not going to go to sleep tonight bemoaning the fact that somebody you didn't know passed away. You're trying to offer services, and you need to be leading with that. And as Bruce said, be factual without show your empathy in other ways, not there, because that's false empathy.
Okay. My other first letter is, I know this letter may be reaching you at a difficult time. First and foremost, I want to let you know that I'm here to help you and your family navigate this process with respect and ease. I'm a probate solutions advocate for families in our area who are dealing with a life transition resulting in inherited property.
That sounds a lot more familiar. That sounds familiar and pretty good.
Much better.
I think that's one of yours. I think.
Yeah, it sounds like.
We like it so much.
I get, but swap out that other paragraph for something like this. Okay.
Yes, and the truth is I like referencing real estate in my letters, but not early. That's a very late in the process letter. They're 6 months into probate. You can start to reference real estate directly. Early.
So if I were taking that paragraph that I just had, instead of saying with a life transition resulting in an inherited property, just stop it with a life transition. Period.
Yeah, you could do that. Yep, you could do
Yeah,
that.
just
we
cut
just
off
want to soften it up a little bit. Just soften it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say the same thing. It sounds a bit more clinical than you're a nice man, and it's obvious by what you're saying that that's what you're trying to bring across there. And you say the right things when you're talking about I help families. That's part of what I do. I provide service to families. And anywhere you delve into a more clinical definition of what you're doing and discuss life transitions, the person that you're talking to is they're not looking for a life transition. They're not thinking of what they're dealing with there. Someone died and we've got problems. The personal representative is someone died and I've got a responsibility that, first off, I probably didn't want to begin with, and more importantly, I don't have a manual for how I'm supposed to do this job to begin with, and I'm afraid I'm going to screw it up. And the family is depending on me, as is the person who asked me to do this job. And so, there's where your empathy needs to be, is that, you're saddled with a difficult responsibility. And what I do is I help people and families in circumstances like this by providing a variety of services that you may or may not be aware of. And, that's a great way to lead into it. And your empathy will come out based on the fact that you've assembled this great team of experts and assisting people to do this job for all the things that the person who's having to settle that estate sort of knows that they need to go do, but they don't really understand it. And you mentioned that you're putting one of these out with a booklet. You could reference the stuff that's in the booklet, which explains, in more detail all the value that you bring to the game. But, stay away from a lofty explanation of what you do and make it more conversational.
Okay. So, in essence, skip any reference to inherited property in the first or second letters, and then maybe if I make a phone call to this person, reference the book and say, I published a book on inherited properties. Could I send you a copy? Something like that. And then
sure, that's reasonable. Yep, that's definitely reasonable. Another thing that you might want to do, and this goes for everyone, it kind of circles back to what Chuck mentioned at the beginning of the call, is do you want to dig into this a little bit deeper? Grab one of our Chuck or my schedule on the training drop down on the online portal, and jump in a 15-20 minute coaching call, and we can dig through some of this a little bit more in detail.
Yeah, I will. I heard you say that earlier, and I thought that's an excellent idea.
All right, sir. Does that help?
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a comment that the person is still on who was talking about getting the objection about having somebody says they have a realtor already. In Pennsylvania, if somebody tells me they have a realtor, I go, that's a good idea. I mean, real estate's tough enough. If you don't have a realtor working for you, you're really in trouble. Who are you working with? That's usually what I ask. And then if it's a buyer, I would ask them, have you signed a buyer agency with that person yet? No, what's that? Oh, if he hasn't talked to you about that, well, maybe this is something that you should consider, because buyer agency is what allows that person to actually work for you. And a lot of times when I ask those questions in that order, I get, they can't tell me the name of the person. They just, sometimes I already have a realtor as just a bluff. Let me get rid of this guy. And then the buyer agency question is one that says, well, if you have a realtor, you signed a buyer agency. If you didn't sign a buyer agency, you don't have a realtor. And then we go from there. And successful maybe 30 or 40% of the time in getting further appointments. Like, can I send you listings? would you like a copy of the book that I have for first-time home buyers? Those kind of things, to get to the next, whatever the next level is.
Absolutely. Hey, and I just wanted to close with one point. I think you were you mentioned in the beginning about calling you a vulture. We call that the lightning strike. We call that the lightning strike. When I had this idea 8 years ago, I made thousands of calls, and nobody ever once called me a vulture or an ambulance chaser. And I can tell you, our people that have been doing this a long time can tell you, if you're approaching this correctly and they're not misperceiving your intentions, which might be part of the problem, but you are going to get that once in a great while. But I think even our most seasoned agents and investors will tell you they can count on one hand the number of times they get that. So don't let that intimidate you. Don't be afraid of that coming again. You just got your lightning strike out of the way, and I think maybe if you change your method of communication a little bit, you'll be even less likely to get it in again in the future. Make sense?
Well, I do have another question on that. I did notice, because I went back through ATL leads and my own CRM to see that the person who I sent this to was the spouse of the person who was deceased, living in the same house. So what's your opinion on sending anything or contacting when there's a deceased spouse living in the same home?
Yeah, now Bruce had to jump. He had to get a coaching call. I would say go to our website, justalltheleads.com, and put in contacting a spouse or a surviving spouse. We've talked about that so many times on calls. Don't let it deter you from contacting them, because often they need more help than anybody. But be particularly gentle in your approach. Don't mention the real estate. Be very, very cognizant of the fact that there may be a lot of other services. If it's a surviving widow and you're going into wintertime, you might want to suggest cleaning their gutters and recommending a good lawn service. You just be much less aggressive and much more empathetic, and really come pushing other services. Don't mention the real estate right off the bat. But I wouldn't let it deter you from contacting them, because they're probably more likely to do something over the next 6 months to a year than anybody else you're going to talk to. They just may not be ready to do it yet.
Yeah, and Jim, let me add one other thing to that too. If you don't contact them, if for some reason you think you want to scrub that from your list, you're just eliminating the ability to ever deal with them. If you're really concerned about it and you want to try and construct a different letter to do that, you can segregate your list and divide it up and send one letter to one list and one to another. But if you read your letter and you don't feel like there's anything in it that is predatory and makes you come off like a vulture, send your letter out and you'll be fine. The other thing is, and I mean this in as kind a way as I can, make sure your head is right. If you feel like that what you're offering is a legitimate service and that you're offering to provide value and that you're not doing this in a predatory way, then anything that they're going to say doesn't really matter, because you know in your heart what you're doing. And if you're, it's the old saying, if your heart's pure, you're going to be fine. If you know that your real objective there is that, you're trying to, rip off a widow, then you got a different issue to deal with. And I'm for sure listening to you knowing that's not the case. So worry not that someone may misconstrue what you're saying. That may happen. It's very rare, but as long as your head's right, you'll be fine. And I know we're out of time, Jim.
Yeah, we've run into foundations. Anybody who signed up for the foundations class, Bruce started it 3 minutes ago. Jump on. And Tom, if you need any more help, jump on with a free coaching call with Bruce, and he can dig into this in much more detail for you. Okay?
Will do. All right. Thank you much.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank all of you. We ran long today. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, but particularly thank those who actually participated. And I want to challenge each of you, take one idea, one thing that inspired you today, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you same time next Thursday. Take care.